Also, this thing is against the window and I don't want it to fall because it's 9 floors up. Okay, so here's the thing. I want to start drawing close, get them right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to focus first on the top part, like a shirt or a t-shirt or a blazer or whatever. And I'm going to try to do several poses that I think that might help. So the poses are with the arms down, just there, relaxed. With the arm up, I'm going to twist. I'm going to keep the arm up like this. Then the other one was leaning like this, maybe sitting down like this. And I think I have one more. And the other one is going to be with the both arms up. And that's going to be the last one. Now I'm going to put all these clothes that I just took out from the closet on, and I'm going to try them. And I'm going to take the pictures to take reference so we can start drawing. Okay, that took me a lot longer than I hoped. In fact, this is the next day from everything you seen yesterday, and I'm wearing the same shirt for continuity issues. And well, let me show you what I found. So what I did from all the poses that I took was to basically trace them and try to find what was it that made them fold like they did. And I'm not going to focus so much on how close is a fold, like when you're folding your arm like this, but most than anything how it hangs. And these are the two things that I think that are kind of like the loss of what make clothes hang like they do. And if you're going to be basing, so I don't know how to explain this well, so I'm just going to do it. When I was trying to do this shirt, these are the things that I found. That what is important here is two things: the hanging point. In this case, it's going to be this. This is the place from where the clothes hang, and also the resting point, which in this case is going to be here where my pants start, which is a point where it no longer hangs, so it starts accumulating like it does here. For the shirt, for this t-shirt here, because of how this is stitched, like these are different pieces of clothes, this part of the shirt is going to be having the hanging point here. So the sleeves are going to hang from the point where they're stitched, and the rest of it is going to hang from the top part that is here on the neck and the shoulders. And it's going to hang like this, going to the middle towards this resting point where it's going to be folding here. Now, in case, depending on when you're standing and if you have big pec muscles, there's also going to be a second not so prominent hanging point that is going to be here on your pectoral muscles. So you might find like lines like this that don't go directly up here, but they're going to basically stop here. Now, the reason why I use different clothes is to actually use different thickness of clothes, because if I use just cotton shirts to try to figure this out, there was a lot of things that I wasn't going to figure out. So for example, here I have this shirt, and you can see here where I am not a professional male model, because anything that I wear just looks wrong on me. And for example, the shirt is a lot baggier than the t-shirt. First, because, well, it is a little bit longer, and the hanging point is going to be here, like the rest of the shirt is going to be inside the pants. And then that is going to make this part a lot baggier, because you're not allowing to rest to a natural point, to hang to a natural point that will be around here, but you're going to take it all up. So that's going to make it a lot baggier here. But since the fabric of this shirt is a lot thinner than the t-shirt, it's going to fold a lot more, and you're going to see more creases on this. So yeah, this is going to go like, you're going to have all these lines going up here as well. And because it's going to be stitched the same way, you're going to have some tension lines here going to this part, just like it did on the t-shirt. Now, here's what happens with this shirt. Since you're using this, which is like cuffs, that's what they call. Since you're using a shirt that has these cuffs, that is going to end the sleeve on your wrist, there's going to be a point where, depending on the length of the shirt, this is going to start folding like this. Like this is going to be a resting point for your sleeves. So it's probably going to be hanging, like this part of your arm is going to be hanging and this part of your arm is going to be folding. And you can see pretty clearly here, like all the lines are going towards this point, and here it just gets a lot more, well, foldy, so to speak. Now I have this one that is very different than this shirt. And it also has this big pocket here. I don't know how to call it, so I'm just going to go with pocket. And it also, difference with the shirt is that it has this piece of elastic fabric here. So the resting point is going to start here as well. Since it has this pocket here, is going to be a lot more baggy. But once you stop with this part, with this, baggy folds, which is something that I want to talk about, because like the thicker the fabric is, the bigger the folds are going to be. You can see here how thin everything folds, and here you can see how thick it is, like compared to the t-shirt where you have these small folds here. In this hoodie you have these big folds here. They're not the same. Now here, well, this is the easy part. It all goes up here because I wasn't in a very right pose, but so I don't have the pectoral muscles to help to make a division between the hanging points. So these are going to be the hanging points. And here, even though I have these cuffs here, they don't actually, they don't grab my wrist like they do on the shirt. So the resting point is going to go a lot lower. It's going to start like this. You can see here that here's where the resting point starts compared to the shirt here. And then it's all just hanging from this hanging point. That is also where the sleeve is stitched to the rest of the hoodie. Now for this jacket, well, in this jacket I marked these lines because this is the point where I realized that there's going to be a hanging point and a resting point, and this one kind of applies. It's not as loose as this cuff, but it's not as rigid as the shirt. So it's still in, since this is a jacket and it's a much more rigid fabric than a shirt, the hanging and the resting is not going to be so intense because it kind of just stays where it is. So the folds are not going to be so drastic. You can see here, because I actually used this shirt, this jacket a lot. It actually has lots of folds, like tiny folds, but not the big type of folds that you see in the shirt. If I compare it to the shirt, where is it? You can see in this one that the folds are a little bit more dramatic than here, where they're just kinda mentioned, I guess. So in this one, this is a blazer that has the thicker fabric. If you touch it, it almost feels like some sort of cardboard. And here it doesn't have cuffs. So the difference that is going to be here, because this is the only one that is long sleeved, but it doesn't have any type of cuffs, is that, well, it's going to be hanging. This is all hanging from this point. And this point, because it is all hanging from that point, is going to become some sort of resting point. If you just fold your arms a bit, all of this fabric cannot hang anymore. I mean, if my arm were stretched, this would probably be all straight, but since it isn't, it stops the hanging from this point and it starts just resting a bit here, and then it keeps on hanging. And since this is a very rigid fabric, you see that it's not really folded a lot. This happens, the same thing happens with the jacket. What you have here is a bit of a tension point here on the button that I'm going to show it to you more the more I go into certain movements, because this is just the static one. So I want to see what happens with the other ones where I'm just moving myself just a bit more. Okay, so for this one, I'm extending one arm, and what you can see here is that, well, on the half that I'm not resting the arm is going to be keeping very similar, and that is that there's going to be a resting point here. Am I drawing? Yeah. It's going to be a resting point here, and this is going to pretty much behave just the same. But well, let's talk about this shirt now that I'm drawing on it. The main thing about this one is that since this is going to be grabbing the shirt below, there's going to be a lot of tension to be had here. It's a lot more tension than here on the case of this t-shirt, which involves some kind of twisting, because I was twisting my body just a bit. That is not the same that is happening on the rest of them, but there's still going to be some direction going like this in all of them regarding the tension of the fabric. Now there's going to be two tension points as far as I could find. Like in this one is just going to be the shoulder. In this one is going to be the shoulder as well, but then you're going to have lines going to the higher points, especially like to the wrist, which is going to be like the main hanging point. But since this is grabbed here, is going to be a lot more tense than in the rest of them. If you take a look at the shirt and the t-shirt, you can see that this line is not so tense as this one. And if you look at the hoodie, it's like it's almost no tense at all, because I'm just a bit fat. There's going to be a place here that will contain all the tension down here. Like this is going to get to this place, and then this is going to go like this. But it's not as tense as with the shirt, because there's nothing containing it except maybe this elastic part here that contains it a bit more than the t-shirt, but not that much. So if you're going to go from the tension point to how tense it is, it's like almost no tense at all. It's just hanging a bit tense because of this, and a lot tense because of this. Now, in these two cases, because well, they're pretty different, because in this one you're going to have the tension point be the button, so it's going to go all lead there. And in this one, since it is open, there's not going to be a tension point. You're just going to carry the fabric up with you. Now this is happening because these two fabrics are very, very rigid. And see how I'm like lifting the shoulder, and it's not like this is not the shape of my shoulder, but it is actually the shape of the jacket being moved. That it is like this shape, and this is where the sleeve begins, but because of how it is stitched, this is fairly rigid. The same thing happens here. So the more rigid the fabric is, the less it's going to adapt to your body. So you're going to be basically moving pieces of clothes that don't adapt to you like you would with a shirt, but you're just going to be moving that part of the clothes forward or down, depending on the movement that you're making. And well, I think that's all I could learn. And then you have, for the sleeve, you have these tension points going up to the wrist. And that is going to be on all of them, no matter if you have cuffs or no cuffs. Here, what I found in these two arms extended pose is that since you're going to be bringing all the tension to these parts, to the shoulders, on the middle of each of the pieces of clothes, there's going to be less tension, and it's all going to be some sort of curve here. And the tension is going to grow towards the sleeves, like it does here. In this one, since it's also loose, there's not, like, the tension is less vertical. And so is in this one, but if you bring it here, like, well, in this particular case, since it's not attached, you're just doing the same thing that on the just one arm extended, but you're just bringing it, just opening it, and here all the tension is going to be going to the button from there. That is the tension point. And well, it really brings my attention that when you're lifting your arms, it's not so much as the resting point and the hanging point, but there's also going to be the two tension points. One is going to be the hanging point, like the shoulders, and the other one is going to be whatever is holding the clothes down, like maybe the pants. In this one, I didn't know that I was off camera lifting my arms, so I bet that there's a lot of things that I could see from this that I didn't, and I'm so sorry about that. But it kind of remains the same. There's not much to be said about this, except that, well, you know, this part in the middle is going to be the same as in the two arms extended, maybe just a little bit more tense. In this one, in the shirt, I'm sitting down so you can see everything. And this one is like super tense towards the arms. And since when you raise your arms, you also rotate them, there's going to be like this motion involved regarding to the fabric. The fabric is going to go with the arm and is also going to rotate in this way. And you can see it in these lines here, you can see it in these lines here, that they're all going to not only go to the hanging point, that in this case will be, well, it's not a hanging point because they're not hanging, it's just a resting point, honestly. But since there's so much tension, I don't know how to figure this out now that I think about it. Like, yes, there is a hanging point, but no, there isn't a hanging point. Because it all should be like, honestly, just resting here a lot, which it probably does. Maybe, I know, maybe that rotation is the one that doesn't let you see all that resting in the fabric, I think. Like, let's see, let's draw a bit. Like, if the arm was extended like this is the worst shoulder ever. You're wearing a shirt, wearing a long shirt, so all this comes here. Now, this doesn't rest like this. Maybe it would if it was something like really open. Yeah, that could be the thing. Maybe even if it's really open and hanging, this rotation here would not have it be as like, maybe it is like this. Well, I had to keep on trying a bit more. And let's see, let's do the two ones that I have left to do. One is some sort of twist. And this one, well, this one is fairly easy because you see, since you're twisting is the same thing that your body would do. You would have all this tension going up. And then, because of the stitching and because of your shoulder blade, you have this extra tension too. So this is from rotating and this is from stretching this part of the fabric. You can see that, you can really see this here. What I'm also realizing is that the thinner the fabric it is, the more folds it's going to have and the more you're going to notice it, especially on shirts. That is something that I didn't notice before. Now look, since this one is really baggy here, you can still have the tension here, but it's going to get baggy like around here. It's going to be hanging here. You won't have much tension. You don't have a lot of more tension here. I thought that I had solved that thing with the Wacom and in this one, because it is so rigid, I may need to see this one again. Yeah, that's like super rigid. So you kind of have this tension here, but since there is no tension in the rotation because you're just dragging this, it doesn't really matter. And in this one, well, I'm posing differently, but it's kind of the same thing. And finally, this one, where I'm sitting down. And I wanted to see how everything rested and hanged. But I don't really know if there is much to be said about this, because it still applies the same. It is the hanging point and it is the resting point, and since the resting point is going to be so much higher because you are just sitting down, it's going to start a lot sooner and it's going to have a lot less tension here because there's not many things that are going to be hanging here. So in this particular case, look at this. There's like almost no tension, like all the shirt is getting like here. The same thing with this, maybe because it is a little more baggy, It has some tension here, but then it doesn't. Like you can tell, like in the resting point here, as the elbow is the resting point now, because my arms are folded, you can see that there's almost no tension in the hanging because it's all just resting here. It's all resting. And this one, there might be just there. Why is it all this rotation here? Maybe because I did some weird motion? But it's still just, well, it all ends hanging here because this is so rigid. It's like, it's very stiff. And in this one, there's also just a lot of hanging here. And this part, also very stiff fabric. So, well, if you have to take something away from this, it's going to be that there's going to be a hanging point and there's going to be a resting point. Where the hanging point is depends on where the highest part of the fabric is. That doesn't mean that it belongs to the whole piece of, for example, the shirt, but it means for the piece of fabric. So for this, it's going to be this part, and for this, it's going to be this part. You have to remember how things are stitched together, which is something that you don't really pay a lot of attention to when you're drawing, now that I think about it. And you also have to remember about the resting points, which are the points that are going to be sustaining the clothes so they don't hang anymore. And that is where a lot of the clothes is going to accumulate and start folding. And the thinner the clothes that you have, the more folds that it's going to have. And the more rigid it is, the bigger the folds are going to be, and the less closed and adapt to your body that is going to be. So if you have a jacket and you're raising your arm, this part of the shoulder is not going to adapt to your shoulder. That's going to kind of move the shape that it already has up. So those are the takeaways that I have from this day, which is such a long video, and I'm sorry for that. And pants. Whew, that took me a long while to do, and I know that I'm going to show you all the photos that I took in like 10 seconds, but I think that it was necessary to learn what I wanted to learn, so I want to show you this. This is some legs that I did very fast, that they're not the best legs, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to show you first what I've learned, and then I'm going to show you how I learned this from looking at the pictures that I took of myself. So imagine that we're going to draw a pair of pants, and these are going to be, this is going to be the belt, that's going to be from where the pants are going to hang, so to speak. But since this is not like pyramidal, like in a t-shirt where everything hangs from this 2 points that is going to be hanging from a cylinder, the hanging point of the pants don't matter that much. What I found out that did matter, and that I'm going to show you on shirts as well, is here, below the crotch. It is a point where all the costures get together, and that is a really good point of tension. So when you're going to be drawing clothes, and for example, you're going to be drawing a shirt, you're going to be thinking of the hanging point, of the resting point, and then the tension point from the costure. Let's just call it the costure point. It also happens here when you have like this costure here and when you have this costure here that are not the same, and this down here is going to be a great tension point for most of the movements. If you go back to, just a bit to the video where I did the shirts, you will see that that happens as well. And here in the pants, this is a really important tension point. So I'm going to draw this part that is like, it is made so it has some extra fabric here so you can move more freely, this part of pants, at least on men, and then it goes to the tension point. So you can see that where the crotch is going to be, there's going to be a lot of tension going to places like this. And then the thing about this pose that I just did is that there's going to be a resting point in the knees. At least it's going to be a resting point here in this particular case. Like there is going to be some knee resting where this is going to be falling like that. And now if you, it is the thing with the knee is that it is a resting point for the top part of the pants, but it is a hanging point for the rest of the pants. So everything is going to hang from here because there is a resting point here. There is going to be some bulk here like this, and then you're going to have something like this for this leg, and for this part you're going to have some tension here because since the leg is going just a bit forward, there's already going to be tension in pants. I'm going to show you the same thing. Well, it happens a little bit different on this leg, because on this leg this is not so much a resting point, even it is a very small resting point compared to what it is on this leg, but it is a really big hanging point, and it's all going to hang from this point like this, and then it's going to accumulate here where you can have this big like resting point, and then you can take it from the back. Since it's going to be hanging, there's going to be pretty straightforward, and you're going to be having this well, the back is pretty straightforward. I don't like this, so I want to do it again, more like this, more like that, I guess. Let me see how it looks. Yeah, that kind of looks okay. It needs some work, but the theory's there, right? I could go more like this, maybe. What matters is that it's all going to go back to this place, and in this particular leg, since it's going to be mostly resting, there's not going to be a lot of tension points from this side. There's going to be some creases because the fabric is accumulated there, but not a lot of tension. So now let's go to the poses that I did. So the first pose that I did is here, a standing pose. And let me just take this here so I can have more space, so I can show you these. And let's also do this. Okay. So I'm going to show you what I've been seeing from this. So you see when it is resting, well, for example, I'm going to show you these jeans here. That you see that this line is because it all comes down from the knee. So there's some sort of resting point here, and then it comes down and gets big, and all the fabric gets accumulated here. If you look at it from behind, that is here. And also, you know, my wife really likes my butt, so if you think that I have a nice butt, just give it a thumbs up or leave a comment, because you're going to be seeing it a lot during the rest of the video. If you see this from behind, you can see that these curves are from the accumulation from this part, but if not, it's just falling pretty straightforward. The Bermudas, well, they're kind of their own thing, they're just hanging there, there's so much to be said about it. And I have Bermudas, these are jeans, these are corduroy pants, and these are ski pants that are really bulky and really, you know, they're really big, really thick, and they don't get moved a lot depending on the motion. I did some motions here that are going to be, some are going to be pretty simple, some are going to be pretty extreme. So here you have it. This is what I've been talking about when I was telling you about the tension point from the costume. There, just below the crotch. You can see that here is like all this tension is going here, all this tension is going here, all this tension is going here. And you know that I just told you that there's this part of the pants that has some extra fabric for it, so you can have more movement. Well, you can see that there's a division between this tension and this tension. They don't belong to the same thing, but because there's that extra fabric, they act differently together. You can see here that in the big ski pants, there's a lot of tension here, and then it has a lot of tension here, and it all goes back to that point in the costume. It all goes back like this. You can see even from behind, you can see that in all the cases, all the lines go back to that point of costume. That is the point that the pants are going to have the most tension as well. And here you can see, well, the pose that I did just initially on the drawing wasn't quite like this, But you can see what I mean, right? Like here, the knee acts as a hanging point, so it all accumulates like this. It all hangs like this to this point, and in this particular case, not so much, but it still gets accumulating here. It has this resting point here that I didn't think about. Well, because it wasn't so extreme on the example that I had, I think. And here from behind, yeah, you can see that if you stretch the leg just a bit more, there's going to be this big resting point here, and from the knee it's going to be this hanging point here and this tension. So it's always going to be those three elements: the hanging point, the resting point, and the tension point from postures. So since these resting points, since these tension points are from postures, you're going to see them mostly in the same places, like here on the armpit or below the crotch. Now here I stretch the leg, and it's the same thing basically. You can see that the tension points, they go here to the crotch, here because the ass is getting tense as well. You're going to see some lines here in the tension. And there's going to be tension here going not only towards the crotch but also towards the butt, because there's going to be this big bulk of mass there. Here in the Bermudas, since you don't have the lower leg, the tension is going to be a lot looser. So instead of just having the leg and having all the tension going here, it's going to lift, see, this piece of fabric a lot more. I had to remember that. And well, it's going to be pretty much the same. And finally, I have here this really long stretch where the same thing applies, and you're going to have this hanging point. Something is going to be accumulated here and the resting point on the leg. Just let me zoom a bit more. And let me see, here you're going to have the hanging point is going to be this part of the leg, so it's going to be going like this. Is it? No, why is it going? Yeah, it is. This mass here is the one that is accumulating, so this is why the curve is here, because this mass is the one that is trying to accumulate. It's going to be hanging from... oh no, it's just hanging from this point. It's resting on this, but it's hanging on this. Here you're going to have a straight line, and you're going to have these tension points here. They're all going to go back to the crotch. And from behind it's just the same. The tension points go back to the crotch. I don't want to bore you anymore with this. I think that I found what I wanted to find about pants, and I learned something else about the posture points. So now what I have to do is try to draw pants and shirts for myself without any help of reference. Wish me luck. At first, I want to tell you something else that I found out. Now, what I have here is some illustrations of some sleeves that I did when I was trying to figure out how to draw creases. And I think I kind of got it. I think I kind of got it how to do it. So, if, for example, I'm going to do this very quickly before I jump to the other part. And it's like, let's say that I have this arm, right? Now this arm is here, it's folded here. So what I want to focus on is on the folds that are going to be on this part. So here we have the hanging point, and here is going to be the resting point, obviously. So the first thing that I like to think about, that I realize, is, you know, when you are squeezing a ketchup bottle and it starts falling down and then it starts like spiraling of sorts, how it gets together? Well, I believe that this is kind of like the same, but it does so in rings. So first you will have this ring, then you will have a second ring that's going to be a little bit more straight, and then you have going to have like some sort of third ring. And you know, the thinner the fabric is going to be, the more rings you're going to have, because the more wrinkles you're going to have. And so, for example, in this particular case that I like to practice on, is like we're going to have this wrinkle, and this wrinkle is going to have this volume here. So this is the space between the wrinkles, and this is the space between the last wrinkle, which is, you know, the further away they are from the resting point, the least aggressive they are going to be. But here, for example, you have this. It does look like an arm, right? And if you're going to be like, if there's someone wearing a shirt, the resting point is going to be somewhere around here. So you're going to have this. And that's it, look. It works, doesn't it? And the most important thing is, there's also another thing that I wanted to tell you, that is that when I did a video about drawing expressions, I told you that in order to figure out how to draw expressions, you don't have to focus on the wrinkles of the face or the eyes or everything, but actually focus on the cheek, the ball, the thing in your face that has least things to look at, because it's just skin. But depending on how this moves is how everything else is going to react. And in this particular case, it kind of works in the same way. Like, what you have to focus on is not on the wrinkles, that is what you have to draw, but you have to figure out these volumes and how they are going to be working. These are the volumes that you should be paying attention to when you're drawing wrinkles. And in this particular case, it's the same thing. So now what I want to show you is that I found some naked people on the web, which is fairly easy. And since we've been doing just men clothes, because I want to do female clothes next week, because I think that is like, it's like a whole another thing. And I don't have female clothes to dress as a girl and model, so I just did male. I mean, I have my wife's clothes, but I don't really want to use them. And so what I want to do is, with this transparency, I want to start using all what I know and what we found out this week to start drawing clothes on these naked people as practice. So, hanging point, resting point, hanging point, resting point, and resting point and hanging point here, resting point. Does it make sense to you? Also, resting point here, and hanging point here. This is how I think it is. This is going to be a resting point. This is going to be a hanging point. This is very clear, right? So now I'm going to quickly shut up and just speed this up while I draw, based on just this information that I just told you. So, how does it look? Does it look like this works? I know there are a few things that I can work on, but it does work, doesn't it? So, well, I want to move on to the next one. So let's do the quick thing first. And this one is going to be a bit hard because I want to put him some like a shirt, like a long sleeved shirt. So let's do this. So hanging point here. Is going to be resting point, hanging point, and resting point here. This is going to be hanging point, resting point, because he's going to have this here. Now, this is a tension point, but it's going to be hanging here because of the curve. This is going to be a resting point. This is all going to be hanging from here on this side. Resting point here. Now, here on the leg, there's going to be a hanging point here, a hanging point here, a resting point here, and there's going to be a hanging point here, and there are not going to be any resting points because of how the leg is. But there's going to be a tension point here, and also the tension point here, and the tension point here from the stitches. Now, because this is a shirt and it's going to be something here in the middle, all the tension that's going to go to this place is going to be cut off by the buttons here. Let's go. Bam! Part 2. So how does it look? There are some things here on the shirt that I think that I need to fix, like this could be a little more baggy, right? And this could be a little more like wrinkled, I guess. Like that is the most complicated part of the shirt for sure. But the pants are okay. They were well like pretty easy. Like well, they should be going like this. Here, I just do the hanging point on the knee. And the sleeves, I think I did pretty okay. Now that I'm not looking at the model, I can see a few more things that I could do. I really don't know about this curve. I feel like it is a little bit unnatural. Maybe this curve will go like this. Or maybe there's just too much tension in the shirt that I made maybe just a bit too tight. So maybe there shouldn't be any tension there, period. Although this thing here, because of this movement, because of the lifting of the arm, this should be a little bit looser than this that is going to be tense because it's going to be falling like this. And this shouldn't be here. Well, I'm a little bit happier with this way. And now for the final one. Well, okay, so let's do this thing. So, real quick. So, hanging point, tension point, hanging point, resting point here. Hanging point, resting point here. Well, nothing is going to be hanging there. Hanging point, resting point here. And then hanging point, resting point here. Hanging, resting point here. Hanging point here, resting point here. Here is going to be a hanging point in, well, the tension points where the usually tension points are. And what do you say, like a hoodie or something like that? And some like really thick pants? Maybe? Well, let's just see. So, what do you think? This one was a little bit more challenging because of the torsion of the body, but you just take all the lines there to maybe the highest point, because this is not going to be hanging from this point and it's going to be hanging off from this. It's all going to come down from here. I am super satisfied with the results. I had to be honest with you. I didn't think that I was going to get this in just a week. So, well, you know how it is. So, let's just do a really quick recap. So, hanging point, resting point, tension point at the seams, and for the creases and how to figure them out, think of them as rings, like gravity rings, like one ring falling on top of the other, or like the SketchUp that you press and it goes swirling on top of the other, because in the flow and the flexibility of fabric, you can interpret it as something more like a liquid type, I guess. So, well, I gotta be honest with you, I'm pretty happy with myself. So, well, this is going to be it for today. My name is Javi and I can draw. Thank you so much for watching. This is going to be also it for the week. I love you all. Like if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more of this. I'll see you on the next week. Have a good weekend. Bye.